Hey, folks. I'm the Amazing Vito, and you're watching the Amazing Vito Show. Today, we have a very serious topic. Uh, the topic here is it was Tony Bendel here has been trying to get fire extinguishers in cars, make it as a law. And the reason why is very simple. A beautiful young lady passed away. Her name was Cindy Devine. She was only 35 years old. She was a mother. Um, she was a beautiful woman, and the reason why she passed, a drunk driver, an idiot, hit her, and she was trapped in the car, and people could not get her out. And the truth is, she died a horrible death, and people, you're just dumbfounded because you're freaking out because you're like, if I just had a fire extinguisher, we could put this out. Anyways, Tony, let me how did it go for you? Like, how did this all? I mean, your campaign to get the fire extinguishers out, and yeah, I see you're wearing a Cindy shirt. So tell me what you're doing, and I didn't want to make it too gruesome, but it was a horrific thing that happened to this poor woman. Do you mind if I show a picture of her?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the young lady here. So that's her there.
Yeah, that was Cindy and her daughter Paige.
And then here's her. She was in. Oh God, there we go. Here was another one, but here is a one that really is a hard one to look at. If you could see that, it's really hard to look at. Um, okay, so I'm gonna have a hard time doing the interview if I think about it because I think in pictures. So, uh, okay, let's just do the interview. Here's another one of her. She was just a young. She passed away needlessly because of some idiot. That's her. Beautiful, bright light. Um, so yeah, it was a horrific story. So, Tony, tell me a bit about yourself and tell me how this all came about.
Well, Cindy I had known for a lot of years. I used to be the media manager of a country music singer that Cindy had back then when I first met her. She was dating him. So we go back a long time. Um, it just basically boils down to Vito on October 2nd. Cindy worked for her parents. They have a fabric place in London. It's called Stitch at Central. And she was on her way to work that day. She actually left early that day because she had to go meet a client over I believe it was a purchase of a sewing machine, an industrial machine. And so Cindy left about shortly after 5-ish, I guess it was, 5 p.m. on October 2nd. And she left St. Thomas, going to London, went up Highbury Ave. It was around 20 after 5. A young guy from St. Thomas was heading back to town from London, crossed the line and hit her head on. Um, Car went into the ditch. Quite a few people stopped at the scene and they ran down. Cindy was fully awake and was talking to them. And they were trying to get her out, but they couldn't get the doors open. The battery in the front of the car was destroyed, so there was no power. The doors were locked. They were able to talk to her through the window, and they were trying to get her out. She told them that she couldn't move because her right leg was caught the dash and that, and the steering wheel was pressing against her, but she was aware of what was going on. But unfortunately, through all the efforts and all the people that were there, the car caught fire and forced them all back, and there was nothing that they could do. Now, after the fact, uh, one of the people that were there, well, a few of them had made the comment that if there was just a fire extinguisher on hand, they could have put it out. They could have at least delayed it enough that it was just a short time after that horrific time that the fire department showed up. So they were already on the way. It's just that just sad that they had to be in the middle of nowhere by the time the fire department got there. But anyway, yeah. So nobody in a commercial vehicle at the time was on scene. It was only cars and pickup trucks. So there wasn't a fire extinguisher, and the one person that was there with her, holding her, said, "If I only had an extinguisher, I could have stopped this." And he believes that 100%. So I drove truck for a lot of years, Vito. Uh, Commercial vehicles, trucks, vans, pickups. If it's a business, they have to have a fire extinguisher. If you have a boat, wherever you dock your boat, doesn't matter, say Port Stanley and you want to go for a ride, you have to have a fire extinguisher in that boat. That's part of your safety package. So why do we not have them in our everyday cars? And with my media um, background over the years, I wanted to do something in honor of Cindy, her memory. She was a great friend. Um, it was a tragic and horrific way to go, and nobody should ever have to do that. Can you imagine your family member, your wife, your husband, whatever, traveling somewhere and this happens to them? You
Yeah,
know,
this is absolutely, when I heard how it happened. I mean, that road, I know what you're talking about, Highbury, is a complete and utter death trap. But there was an accident a few years ago where a couple of young guys on bikes, they hit a truck and they died. The guy and girl, there was a boy, two guys, and they both had their girlfriends or something in the back. They were flying, and a truck came out. They hit the truck so hard that they tipped the truck. The one guy on the bike,
I remember that.
you remember that? And the only thing that you could take away from that is at least the person didn't suffer. It went quickly, right?
That's right. That's right.
So as much as you could say, well, he shouldn't have sped, he shouldn't have done that. The first thing you think about is how, you're like, oh, holy shit, that person, did they feel pain? And when you hear what happened to this poor Cindy woman, it is absolutely gut wrenching. I mean, she was wide awake. She knew what was going on, but she was pinned in the car, and people could not get her out. And it catches on fire, and you could only imagine.
I've heard some of the bad details. I have been told, and yeah, I wouldn't tell anybody what that person told me, but I think the majority of people, Vito, need to hear how bad this was for them to really understand, what happened.
Yeah, and for me, I don't get a lot of sports cars. People could say, "Well, what do you need a fire extinguisher for? What do I mean, it's just another thing." Well, you have a jack in your car. You have, most people have a little safety kit, and a fire extinguisher. I mean, it's just there just in case if anything happens. It's the what if thing. And a lot of sports cars have fire extinguishers because when they blow up, they blow up. So they have fire extinguishers, and they've been having fire extinguishers for years. It's not a new thing. They've been having a fire extinguisher in really high end cars uh, for years. So why can't people just have a fire extinguisher in their car? It's the whole what if, because if that was, my family, uh, something horrible, or anybody's family, if I had a fire extinguisher, I could just run out there and just put it out, and people just, okay, wait for the fire department to come out to get the jaws of life to pull that person out. But it's the whole thing, it's just sitting there helplessly. We all think we're Superman, but you've been around a fire, a campfire, and try and stick your hands in that. Try and picture somebody in the middle of that inferno, and you're trying to get that person. Because that's what you say to yourself. You sit there and go, well, why didn't anybody grab this person and pull them out? Well, it's not like they didn't try. I'm sure they tried.
Right.
Like in, it's
Big,
horrific.
one of the big things right now, Vito, is the people that were at the scene, what they're dealing with, the mental images. They've had to go talk to people. The professional services encourage them. The emergency services. You need to go talk to seek professional help, because you and I, as an average everyday Joe, I mean, we've never had to deal with that kind of situation, right? So one of the guys that I've had a big talk to that was there with her, um, even told me that the therapist that they were seeing currently told them that they really didn't know what to say, because they themselves have never had to deal with a patient or a person with this kind of trauma. Um, yeah, it's bad, man. It's really bad. But from this point, this campaign I've started now is across Canada. I've done a lot of interviews now, not just in Canada, but also in France, and talk to people in Germany and Australia. Um, this is something that we can go forward from this point and do our damnedest to make sure that nobody has to, hopefully ever go through this kind of scenario. Like you said, with the accident about the ones on the bike, when we first heard about this, that was kind of our first thing. Was we were wondering if we were just hoping that she would not have survived the accident itself. That was kind of our first initial thought. Was hopefully it went quick. Uh, so now all our efforts and everything are in this campaign called Extinguishers for Cindy, and yeah, and that's what we're doing now, is trying to get as many fire extinguishers into as many cars as we can, and petitioning the government, which I can tell you all about right now. They're right on board with us for coming up with a law for Ontario, uh, hopefully by 2023, 2025. But it will be mandated that all cars bought and sold will come with a fire extinguisher. They're very simple. It's not much to them. And, one of the things, Vito, is I've also had people say to me, well, what good is that going to do to me if I'm in a bad accident, I'm in the ditch, my fire extinguisher's in the trunk? How's that going to save me? Well, the idea is that extinguisher that's in your car is actually not for your accident. The extinguisher, so really what you're hoping is, if you're in that accident, Vito, and 30 people stop on that roadway, each of those cars have extinguishers. So the people can grab all those extinguishers. You can just imagine how much fire fighting power you can have if you have 20, 30, 40 extinguishers there that people can use, spray, and have an endless supply of fresh extinguishers. Your extinguisher in your car is if you come across an accident. God forbid you never do, but if you do, then you know what? You've got one. And
Yeah, but even
that's
if even if you do get into an accident and you can get out of your car, sometimes a car can catch on fire. You could always get your fire extinguisher out and put out your your vehicle.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I don't know if you know the Formula One driver Jackie Stewart. He's I believe a three-time world champion, but he really quick he had a horrible accident, and this is I think it happened in the 1960s. And back in Formula One, I mean, guys were just it was bad, he championed to have marshals out there, to have guys with back then the fire extinguishers had water, compressed water. But he had an accident where the car flipped over and it was on, and he had petrol gas just spraying all over him. And as he's upside down, he looks over and he sees two guys sitting there with cigarettes. And he said to himself, if I get out of this thing alive, I am going to change. Like, I'm going to make sure that, because, being a world champion, when you can, you could talk to, he had the power to talk to, the FIA or, and just say, listen, there needs to be some type of, we're losing drivers like crazy that we should not be losing. So he really championed this to get more safety in Formula One, in racing in general, and things progressed. Things got better and better, and uh, but yeah, it's the same thing with the in Quebec by law at wintertime you have to have snow tires, right? Um, and if we had people with like I don't you shouldn't if you live in Phoenix, Arizona, you don't need snow tires, but all over the globe, if people were to just have a little fire extinguisher, it would save so many lives. um, and it's always that saying of we always have that mentality of it's not going to happen to me, or it's not going to happen to my loved one, it's going to be someone else. I know a girl I went to school with who's a teacher now, and she lost a daughter. And it's just every time I see her, I think of the pain and suffering, because I couldn't imagine her hell, when she found out what happened, and the continuing hell that she has to deal with of that the birthday, the Christmas, the memories, the so you just wish idiots wouldn't drink and drive. This isn't, but people are going to drink and drive. It's just like saying, I wish people would stop robbing banks. People are still going to rob banks. If you're prepared, if you're prepared, and the other vehicles are prepared, you're just minimizing uh, something that could go horribly. And it could have been if somebody had a fire extinguisher there. I mean, I'm sure if there was a truck driver that was driving by that stopped, it's all timing. It's all that what if the somebody stopped and had one, and nobody had one, and that could have been avoidable by a simple little fire extinguisher. So I don't see what the problem is where people are like, what do you mean, having a fire extinguisher in the car and you're going to have people. And it's like, hey, man, unless something, you hear these things or you see these things and you're like, man, I wouldn't wish this on my enemy. I mean, what a, uh, and it doesn't matter if the person is, beautiful or whatever. It doesn't, all that matters, it was a life that should not have been taken, and it could have been easily avoided uh, by just a simple fire extinguisher. I have three in the house, you know, and it's just something that
Well, most people though, you never think about having one in your car.
yeah,
Or thought of it.
I think it's the mindset.
I never did.
I never thought of having a fire extinguisher in the car because I always thought if there's a fire, uh,
Get out.
yeah, like you're going to get out of the car. You know, that's what your mindset is, right? It's the same thing. Remember, they always said, you know, I remember with the seatbelt laws in 19, when did it come in? 1986, when they said you have to wear seatbelts. I remember driving without a seatbelt. All my buddies, we would drive without seatbelts. And the one guy that used to drive with the seatbelt, we used to make fun of him.
Yeah, I
Just,
remember that. Yeah,
just go. What is your like? Are you serious, man? You're wearing a seatbelt?
yeah,
I won't tell you what we'd call him, but anyways, he's a multi-millionaire now, you know. So, anyways, he would wear a seatbelt, and we'd just go, "What are you doing, man? Wearing a
yeah,
seatbelt?" Because we always said, you know, hey, if you get into an accident, this is how stupid, you know, we were. You get into an accident, you just hold on to the steering wheel, and then that way, you know, there's no chance of smashing your head up against the windshield, which is absolutely you could be Arnold Schwarzenegger at his prime, and there's no way you could stop that. I remember being into an accident with a guy, and he hit so hard that it ended up breaking his back, paralyzing him. Luckily, he didn't. You know, he was paralyzed for a little while, but he ripped the steering wheel completely off. And I remember being in the car while it was starting to smoke. This is broad daylight. Nobody had a fire extinguisher. This was 1989, right? So nobody had a fire extinguisher. Nobody had this, and it was a hell of an accident. He was a big dude, and I won't get into it, but it's just he ripped the steering wheel completely off. That's how hard he hit. How hard we hit. So
tremendous forces.
yeah, the you know the so and he you know he was still holding on to it while he was out cold. He you know they had to you know pry it off of him. So where do you see how do you see getting this law uh like I talked to you earlier, you were talking to Mel Rooney, who were you talking to the government
Oh
to?
yeah, well, the Minister of Transportation for Ontario is Caroline Mulrooney, and so I was talking to her office last week, and through our local uh, MPP, which is Jeff Urick, he's the Minister of Parks and Recreation, I believe it is. Uh, through our local MPP's office, and even had meetings with the federal MP, Karen Vecchio. Um, Told them what I was doing, the whole plan and fire extinguishers. They love the idea. They said, yeah, we need to do something about this. Um, so anyway, how it's progressed from Cindy's accident is we started the Facebook page called Extinguishers for Cindy. That's where you'll find all the information, everything we've done. We're doing free draws on there for people that want the chance to win a free fire extinguisher. Um, we've had two draws right now, and we gave away some home extinguishers. I think we're like 100 and around 220 fire extinguishers we've given away. We have the third one coming up at the end of this month of March. The other thing, we've teamed up with the St. Thomas Fire Department. The Chief Fire Prevention Officer, Bill Todd, has been just amazing. All of them at the fire station here in St. Thomas. Wonderful. We've done all the draws through them. Uh, we have a distributor from it's called, actually, I have it right here. Um, Elgin, Elgin Fire Extinguishers. Excuse me, dropped it. Of course I did. And anyway, that's what it looks like there. Elgin Fire Extinguishers. So Daryl has been gracious to supply us with the extinguishers. We were fundraising. We've had factories, businesses, personal donations. To date, we raised approximately $11,000, and All that money is strictly back to fire extinguishers, and uh, and that's it. It's there's no profit to be made in this whatsoever. The area fire departments, talking St. Thomas, Union, uh, Yarmouth, Port Stanley, Talbotville, they've all contributed money. All the fire departments to this uh, to this campaign. So from here on, now what we're doing is we're working on the next draw. Um, we've had one of the guys, he's a firefighter from Yarmouth, Central Elgin, Paul McClanahan, and he's been an absolute amazing guy to work with on our side because Paul has gone out to the area fire halls and everything and talked to them, got donations. He also is a car salesman at Elgin Chrysler, who is everybody that purchases a car through him, he is giving them a fire extinguisher. And he's already doing that privately that way. We have people in Tilsonburg that are starting a campaign over there. The chief fire prevention officer uh, from Lambton Shores, I believe, which covers Sarnia, Chatham to Grand Bend. He is now on board with us and wanting to do draws and everything down his way. So this whole thing is spreading. Um, I've talked to people and they said, well, I don't know how to use a fire extinguisher. Like, have you ever used one, Vito? Like, if you were to take a fire extinguisher, would you know how to use it?
Yeah, of course. You just pull the pin, you just read the instructions. It's not that difficult. I mean, if I could do it, any idiot could do it. So you just pull the pin, stand back, and press down on it. It's really not that difficult.
There's, there's actually a terminology used for it, and it's called PASS, PASS. And you just did it right there. You pull the pin, you aim, you squeeze the trigger, and then you sweep. You sweep the fire. So this is what it is, right here. This is the fire extinguishers that we are giving away. What you're looking for, and I've learned a lot doing this, is the fire department says you want a 2A 10BC. So 2A, that is your capabilities of what the fire that you're fighting, the different varieties of fire. There's three classes generally of fires. Um, there's four with, I believe it's like magnesium, if it's metal, is kind of a fourth classification. The 10BC, that stands for the square footage of the fire that you're going to fight. So you can imagine if you're, say, those little tiny extinguishers that you have by a kitchen stove,
Yeah.
right? They're just a small little cylinder. Okay. Now keep in mind that thing is probably going to work for about 3 seconds. That's
That,
all
that's
you got.
that's all they got.
That's all they are.
Because
This big one right here. Okay,
that's what I
that big.
got.
This thing is big. It's huge. And this would go for probably about 20 seconds. That's it. That's all you have out of that.
So it's got power. So the little ones only are good for 3 seconds, like just
3 to 5 seconds. That's 5 seconds is probably tops. Um, you'll hear people talk about 5 pound extinguishers. There's 2.5 pound, 5 pound, 10 pound, 20 pounds. Um, this, according to Elgin Fire, is a 10 pound. But the fire department will tell you do not go by that. You want to go by the BC number. So a 2A is this one here actually is a I believe this was a 3A, 3A or 4A. Oh my goodness, I kind of forgot on that one. This one is, I believe it's a 3A 40 BC. I know it's a 40 BC, so that will cover 40 square feet. So that is a big fire. So well for a vehicle. Comes with a bracket already. You can see the screw holes. Comes with the bracket, everything for the car. So all it is, you lay it down in the trunk, the sidewall. If it's say a hatchback car, station wagon, you can mount it on the floor, the back seat, anywhere you want. It's just a couple of self-tapping metal screws. That's all you put in. and it comes with a the hose. So the pass system is you just pull that little pin right here, which is right there. Pull that out, you squeeze the trigger, which is right here, and you aim and you sweep.
But
And that's it.
just a question: if that's in your trunk, and somebody were to hit you from behind hard enough, would that blow up?
No, no, we already asked that too. These will not explode. They do not overheat in the summer, and they do not freeze in the winter. They are completely now. There is some maintenance for these. I believe it's every 6 years you have to have a static charge done to it or a test. Um, Basically, the life of this is 12 years. That is the extended life. So these are roughly, say, I believe these are about $75 at a retail store price. So even if you had to pay $80 for 12 years, this is in your car. If you have one hanging at your home, they tell you have to take it off the hook, shake it at least once a year. Because otherwise, you could have it hanging there 4, 5, 6 years. All of a sudden, you have a fire. You look at the gauge, and it's in the green. It says, "Oh yeah, I'm good to go." You panic, you squeeze it, nothing comes out. All the powder is settled in the bottom, sitting down here. So in a car, you don't have to worry about it. It's already mounted.
Well, it's just common sense. I mean, when I did security, one of the things at the hospital was we had to check all the fire extinguishers once every 2 weeks, something like that. I can't remember; it was a long time ago, but it was just really simple to read. You just mark down, is it still good? Yeah. The
Yeah,
fire department would come in and check the whole thing.
which is
Uh,
what that tag is. That's what
yeah,
they use at Elgin Fire to service when they service the extinguishers. One of the other things. Okay, so you have one of these, Vito, and then it's old. It doesn't work anymore, or you have used it. What do you do with them? So I found out you can just take them to any of your local fire stations, your fire halls. The guys love these to use for practice and training, and they will get rid of any old extinguisher. They do not fill these. Fire stations, fire departments are not in charge of refilling fire extinguishers. You have to go to a company like Elgin Fire Extinguishers, and they're located out on Elm Street here at St. Thomas. Um, Companies like that, Georgian Bay Fire Extinguishers, there's another one. There's many companies around the area that do fire extinguishers. They are the ones that charge these things. So um, people that would like to see a video on this too, Vito, we got together with the St. Thomas Fire Department and the one south of Elmer at Malahide, their news station. And I went out and we did a training video. And that's on the extinguishers for Cindy's page. Um, it will tell you all about the extinguishers, the classifications for them. We did it in like a classroom setting. And then we went out behind the fire hall and actually set a fire and had a propane fire and liquid and everything and used fire extinguishers, put it out. And then an actual vehicle on where to aim it on a vehicle fire if it's in the engine compartment or in the cabin where the person would be. So um, that page is very important to us because it's not only letting us get the campaign out and able to get these fire extinguishers out, but hopefully we can give people the knowledge on, how to use one of these things because they are very simple. The only thing you got to make sure if you put it in a car, if it's in a trunk with an actual trunk, it's okay. You don't have to fasten it down. I mean, you want to fasten it. You don't want this thing rolling around. This thing's pretty heavy. Um, if it goes in a car like a hatchback, you got to fasten this thing down because if you're in an accident, Vito, and this thing comes flying out of the back and slams you in the head, that's probably a fire is going to be the least of your worries. So you want to make sure this thing is pretty secure.
yeah, but I mean, it's just common sense. You would not just throw that in the back of your vehicle. You would screw that in. You could always go to the car dealership, or if you're, if
That's
nobody, if you're not
yeah,
handy,
Yeah,
You could just go to the dealership and just say, "Hey, can you fasten this?"
absolutely. And they'll do that.
And
Any garage mechanic,
yeah,
they'll put it in for you.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
so with that
Tony,
veto on installations and
hold on.
law
You
to
froze
Toronto
there for a
and
second.
the
Say
Ministry
again.
of Transportation's office.
Say again. You
Yeah,
froze
I
there.
know the internet is, yeah, it's acting up a little bit.
Start again
So,
what you were saying. You froze there right as you started that sentence.
yeah, the proposal of the law that we wrote up that went to Toronto for the government of Ontario, the Minister of Transportation's office. So basically, what they're going to be doing is writing a law so that any new vehicles coming up in the for sale in the future are going to be installed, buy or sell. They're going to have these inside, and that'll be probably part of your safety on the car. So they'll just check that off on the safety. There's actually two parts to this campaign, Vito. There's one that we hashtag extinguishers for Cindy, and the other one is called Cindy's Law. Hashtag Cindy's Law. That one is we need to change the impaired driving laws. These people that are multiple times, this young guy that hit Cindy that day, this was not his first offense. This wasn't his first rodeo. So what we have currently as laws is awful. It's shameful.
Oh, it's
It,
disgusting. You get
it
the
is.
guy, you have that multi-millionaire guy,
Yeah,
that young,
exactly.
his parents, his dad's a billionaire or something. And, uh, he ended up slaughtering a whole family,
Yep.
you know, and, he's out because he's got money. That's the bottom line, folks. I mean, if and the laws are complete. I mean, if that was my family member that happened to, and this guy were to walk, I don't want to say what I would do, but I would take care of it my way. Just that's just because I couldn't. This guy killed three people, three young people, and a grandfather. He butchered a whole family, and he walked because he was drunk, and I'm sure he was drunk, right? Was he not drunk? Or
Yeah.
was he just
Yeah. No, he was
like an
impaired.
idiot?
Yeah, no.
So, and I know the area. I have been down that area. There's a hill there. It is, you got to be careful. But yeah, the laws are just. I mean, I haven't. The '80s, everybody would drink and drive until somebody got caught. Then you thought, oh, this is not. I don't want to end up like losing my license or whatever. Uh, but we joke about it. Oh, you made it home, you were drunk or whatever. And I remember driving through. It was downtown Toronto, and they were having a checkpoint. And I mean, if they had a checkpoint, and I had enough in me that if I were to blow, I would have been charged drinking and driving. I was okay driving, but I just knew I had like 4 or 5 drinks, and it's just, and I'm not a big drinker. So and I said, hey man, if they don't pull me over, I will never drink and drive again. Never, ever, ever. And they waved me through, and I ended up pulling over, and I let my it was like, because it was my car, I didn't want anybody driving it, but I'm like, hey man, I don't want to. So I had the brother-in-law guy, he would drive, and it was just anything, anything horrible could happen, and it's on you, you know like it's totally on you. uh so you're driving a vehicle. It's a weapon pretty much, man. You see,
Oh, sure.
you've seen plenty of videos of just people driving. They're oblivious, road rage, whatever, and anything could happen out there. So this is just a way of just being prepared, and hopefully, um, people understand. I mean, the fire department. The reason why they're saying yes, this is a great idea is because they've seen so many horrible things that they just say to themselves, if they just had a fire, if they just had a fire extinguisher, they could have saved someone's life, you
Here,
know?
Vito, here's one for you. Just think of you got pulled over by an OPP officer or a police officer somewhere, and you weren't wearing your seatbelt, and you think he was very rude. Okay, maybe he got really mad at you for something, or you got a ticket, you drove off, you cursed that cop like crazy, right? Just think though why he was like that. Maybe, just maybe, he had just seen something similar to what happened to our friend Cindy,
Sure,
where
of course.
a drunk driver happened to hit her head on, had to go back and tell her family that she's not there anymore. That day that happened, her dad actually was at the scene too. She didn't show up for work. He left London because she never, ever was late. And if she was going to be sidetracked or whatever, she always called. So she was always in contact. There was no contact. They tried to call her that day to find out, hey, what's going on? There was no, it was just the recording on her phone. The, Her dad actually drove down Highbury and came across the accident. Thank God the police did not let him near it. Told the police that his daughter hadn't shown up for work, and he wound up calling her sister and basically said right there that she was gone. He already knew without actually being told. He just knew it was her. So maybe that cop, that next time when you get pulled over and you think, man, what an asshole, I hope your gun shoots you in the foot. Maybe it's because he saw something like that and how traumatic that is for those guys,
Yeah, of
and
course. I mean,
it,
it's something that you, again, you don't wish on your worst enemy. You really don't,
yeah,
because this is just absolutely,
yeah,
it's horrific. And she left a family behind, and a broken family.
yeah.
So
Her husband not doing, he's a lot better than what he was, but he's got a long way to go.
yeah, Tony froze up there again. So yeah,
I've
when
been
he,
in contact with him quite a bit. 12-year-old daughter.
yeah, you
Yeah,
froze, you froze up
that's
again.
all I can really say is they're trying, right? So,
All
yeah,
right, well, okay, I understand that.
yeah, it's coming up saying it's unstable.
Okay, well, listen, um, thanks so much. And can you send me the link to her page, and we'll get it out there, and hopefully people understand that uh, this is something that I'm amazed that has not been implemented years ago, you know. And yeah, the whole point of this is just to save lives. And I think anybody that um, if you were there, or you had a loved one and that happened to you, you'd be like, if I just had a bloody fire extinguisher in the car, um, you know.
Exactly. That's
So,
exactly it, Vito. So I'm just asking everybody, go to the page, visit that page, get the information, call your local MPP, your MPs, and just tell them, hey, you support having these fire extinguishers in cars.
all
I
right.
mean, really, come on, like who to save a life and from somebody like that, just for one of these, that's it. That can do it right there.
Yeah,
Let's
it's always the same thing, where if you just had a fire extinguisher, you would just go, hey, and everybody would shake hands and, oh, thank you, and you'd move on and with your life, or whatever, that person would move on. But if you didn't, it's always that saying of, if you ever get into an accident, where it's like, maybe if I just had another cup of coffee before I left home, I wouldn't have been hit. I wouldn't have, something bad would happen. All this is, again, is just to prepare. And it's sad that, it happened to, and this has just happened to uh, a lot of people. We just don't want to hear about it on the news. We always,
Oh, that's right.
We
That's
just
right.
don't, you tune off, it's like me telling you about a rape. Okay. So, but if you see a rape, your mindset is totally different, right? And that's just the way it is. So if people can just, I mean, grasp that this is not a, hey, this is just a government grab or anything. That's idiotic. This is just to save maybe yourself and maybe somebody else. So,
Hey, I'm just an average guy, Vito. You know, I'm just one of the little people basically out here in this world.
well, that's good that you're doing
That's
what you're doing, and I hope that we get, well, you get a lot more, and people wake up to this. So,
I'm just trying to show people too, Vito, that one person can make a difference.
yeah,
I,
sure.
I, you know, all you have to do is believe in what you're doing and get out there and do it.
Let me, yeah. So let me hold on. There we go. There we go. So,
Yeah,
I didn't want to put up the kid because that bothers me. So, uh,
yeah, that's Richard and Cindy.
yeah, it's just it's absolutely horrific. Okay, so listen, folks, I'll put a link. Tony, thank you so much, and have a safe day, and be careful out there, folks. Um,
Thanks, Vito.
yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. And I know it's a touchy subject, but hopefully we get people to understand that how serious this is. Okay, folks, be safe, be kind, and take care of yourselves.